Ladies and gentlemen, Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to our live session, Managing Disruptive Change. I'm happy to have you with us, and I'd like to do the following. Give a short introduction into our topic, why I think it's really relevant to look at our MOOC. And secondly, I'd like to answer the first questions we received, and maybe you do have a question and then put in the chat room, and I can talk about that too. So let's start with why I do think that managing disruptive change is a hot topic right now. This is a slide we used I used in a talk I had to do a couple of weeks ago, also about disruption and large corporations in front of me, large multinationals as we have on the slide. And these large multinationals, these large boats, I mean, they have advantages. They have tons of experience, significant manpower, various value proposition, like a large boat. They have a swimming pool on the boat. They have a band or several bands. They have buffet dinners all around, great restaurants, everything. However, they are also facing a problem because there are other new small players around with different ideas, lean structures, and core strength. And what is actually the difference between the two? I mean, those large boats, they have to think about two main questions. First of all, then the first question is, what is the direction we should follow? And this is to some extent kind of like their strategic idea, their market orientation. So where is the market heading to, and where should I go if I do that? And secondly is, how can we execute the optimal steering to follow the direction? That's the second question. And so to say, this is building the resource base in order to follow that direction. And these are the main questions these large boats have. And actually, whenever they focus on a direction, whenever they are on a specific path and they are starting to build up the resources and aligning the market with their resources, they're on the way. And you can, to some extent, say this is like the Titanic. Titanic, they want to go a different route, and they selected the route. But whenever the iceberg came up, they had a problem because they weren't able to brake fast enough. They saw the iceberg in advance, but they weren't able to brake fast enough. And if you look at the small boats around here, they can go different paths. They are more flexible. They can go around the iceberg. They probably would have seen the iceberg at the same time the large boat would have seen it. However, they would have been able to go around. So Titanic basically was gone, and those small ships, they were kind of like following a different route around, and this is one of the advantages. Or if I've put it to say it more entrepreneurial, these small boats, they have nothing to lose, basically. And this is one of the things we see in entrepreneurship, and this is why I also think this topic is so relevant, because more and more entrepreneurs, I mean, we educate the entrepreneurs and technology changes to a large extent, but more and more entrepreneurs come up in the world in those small boats, and they give many like different things a try. And they can give it a try, like an Elon Musk with the Tesla. He gave the electronic mobility a try, and like more than 10 years ago when he started, whatever he did, it wasn't in the same quality and as good as the established players like a Mercedes, Porsche, or whomever you want to name right now. And probably if a Mercedes, if a Porsche, if one of the established players had sold a product like the first Tesla, people would not have been very satisfied and would have said, is this really a Mercedes? Is this really a Porsche? So the brand image these companies have, they don't allow them to go those flexible ways like those small boats can go. And this is the problem these big ships, these which you can see on the picture, have. And this is also the advantage young small companies have, But whenever these companies grow bigger, like a Tesla today, they are potentially disrupting the entire industry. And this is why being aware of those potential disruptions, looking at them, trying to understand them is very, very important. And we do have one example from like the European market, another example, the European/German market. It started in Germany, is now all over Europe. When the bus or the transportation market got deregulated in Germany and also in other countries throughout Europe, these bus companies came up. And one of these bus companies is called Flixbus. Actually, it started two companies, Mein Fernbus, Flixbus, and then it consolidated and more companies came in. And what this company basically is doing, like a Greyhound in the US, is you can go from A to B by bus. Why is this interesting? Because now think about the established players again, like a Deutsche Bahn, so the established railway companies. Those railway companies basically did one thing. And if you follow Clayton Christensen's idea, you can see that the established industry always does the same. They are making their products, their established products, better and better and better over time. And because this is what we as customers want. If you think back and buy an old automobile, like an old Mercedes, and compare it to new Mercedes from today, you're really astonished about how hard it was to drive this old car and how uncomfortable it is and all sorts of things. So it is first of all a good thing that established companies try to make their products better and better and better over time. However, they leave open two segments of the market. And the one segment which they leave open is the segment where people just want to get from A to B. Like the German Bahn was getting better and better and better and more comfortable, more services and all sorts of things. But the prices had to be higher and higher because you have to pay for these services. However, it left open the low end of the market, so to say, where people just wanted to get from A to B, basically without services. And there are more examples for that. If you look in the airline industry, the established airline industry introduced more and more services, and then Ryanair, Southwest Air came on the market and said, I serve the people who just want to go from A to B for a cheap price. And this is actually what happened here. For sure, they first of all gave it a try. And they looked at what are the good destinations, what are the attractive destinations, like beach locations or skiing locations I should serve. So they go from highly populated areas in Germany to the skiing locations. This is how they started. And people wanted to do that, especially when it was more complicated to go by railway. And then they expanded throughout all over Germany with this idea. And it basically tells you that if something like deregulation happens, for example, and this is a driver of disruption, new companies start and new companies attack either in most of cases from the low end of the market or from the high end of the market. And it's for established players, it's important to pay attention to that, because what you don't want to get disrupted. And this is to some extent what happens in Germany, at least to the rail industry. They don't get disrupted, but they lose market share there. And if we go, we had some examples from the automotive industry. If we go into the automotive industry, and I mentioned Mercedes or Daimler as a company, for sure they have the old competition like Audi, VW and BMW, but also new companies are coming up all over the world, potentially disrupting their business model, be it using new technologies like a Tesla and going into the market and saying, okay, people don't use the old combustion engine, be it an Uber, saying we do some sort of car sharing, or be it other companies who take away market share in that way that they build up the services, and based on these services, you can build a different industry structure. And if you follow the automotive industry by now, well, they are really thinking about what happens in the future. What is the engine of the future, and how many cars are we going to sell in the future? What are the other companies like Google doing, not only with Google Maps, but also developing autonomous driven cars based on their technology or based on Google Maps, the data they have on traffic and maps and so on. And then a step further, if you are a VW, your problem is even bigger, because it's not only those problems I was just talking about with Mercedes. It's also that they had the fake diesel test and they have to pay a lot of money for that. And that leads to a very important point here, and this is why we established that MOOC, saying it is not possible to react to every of these potential disruptions in the same way. So maybe you have to react and spend a lot of money to look into electronic mobility. But maybe it's good to make a partnership with Google in order to use Google Maps. Or as Mercedes did, they bought here as a company and also incorporated the maps, so the technology here has. So if you look at what potentially could happen, and if you take into account that you have to first of all look at your own direction and pay money for your core business, which right now is probably your profit driver, you have to get aware of those potential disruptions in a better way in order to see, or in order to decide where to put the money into and how to specifically react towards those potential disruptions you are facing in the world of today. So you're a big boat or a big ship, and you have all those small boats around you, and you can't have them all. You can't sit in each of the boats. You can sit in one or two and try out what happens there, but you're not able to try them all. And this is what we are saying also in our MOOC, and this is why we built our MOOC, to say, okay, first of all, we have to understand what's happening around the core business, around the core company, and there are many things happening always. And then you have to get a better sense about what is happening, try to understand the pattern of a potential disruption, and building on this pattern, you have to have a specific reaction. And the reaction is very specific according to the potential disruption. And this is what we are going to work on in the course, trying to understand where's the disruption coming from and what is the very specific reaction to that potential disruption. So trying to understand different disruptions or potential disruptions in a different way. And they are all over, and we can see more examples, and these are German examples, but this is a company, Perpedes, and what they do is leg and foot orthoses. So it's a manufacturer of those plastic devices, basically, or devices, plastic. So if you have had surgery, or if you broke your foot or your leg, and you go into the recovery, what they do is they build these devices based on fiber composites, so on composite materials. However, now for them, it's an important question: how does 3D printing kick into that? How important is 3D printing for their core business? And it might be totally different, the same technology, 3D printing, than for the other company, Tandler. And Tandler, they is a specialized engineering and manufacturing company of gear wheels and transmissions. And the question for them is the same. There's a new technology coming up, 3D printing, but the reaction might be totally different, since you can see in practice they are already using laser melting technologies in order to build their parts. On the other hand, Perpetus is not using that, and they have good reasons for that. So what you can see in just anecdotal evidence, however, what you are able to see, that they react in different ways. And again, reacting on the same change, on the same technology, on the same potential disruption in a different way. This is what we try to work on in the MOOC. And now this should be the introduction. It was already 15 minutes, so I'd like to open for questions. We actually received a couple of questions before. So the first question is, disruptions have always existed in business. Can we not simply apply the business as usual approach to deal with them? I think it's a good question, and I would say, or I would answer the following. What we learn in entrepreneurship over the years, that entrepreneurs have specific advantages. As I said that before, they can try out more in different things. They can give it a totally try, and they don't have a brand they have to they have to rely on, or they have to pay attention to. They can go different paths, and this is not the business as usual path. As a large company, you have very specific questions like, what is my direction? How do I build the resources you're working on? If you just react with the business as usual, you don't react like the entrepreneurs outside, but you have to make use of these methods too in order to react properly. It's just a brief answer to that, and we have more to that in the course. We had another answer, a question from Timo right here in Germany. Do companies really need to deal with this disruption internally, or can they just purchase the other companies that are causing the disruption? Well, actually, you can do that as a company. The question is, if a startup comes up and is going to be interesting, only one big player can buy it. And actually, if you look in what's happening, and this is a very German question, in Germany, most startups are being bought. In the US, those startups don't want to be bought. You can see that. Many of the big companies you can see in the US, they had great offers to be bought for millions and billions of dollars, but they always said no. We develop our company further and made it a global player. So yes, you can try to buy these companies. First of all, you have to get aware of that. So again, you have to look into the potential disruptions. You have to get an idea where the disruption might be coming from. You might try to get a better feeling of the disruption, and then maybe there is a company out there that you are able to buy. However, it's only possible for one, and even if this company is giving you a no, it's not possible. So yes, you can try to go that way, but in most cases you have to look for different paths. Another question from Derek: how can I get my employees to think outside the usual scope of work to better deal with disruptions? I think it's a good question too, because what I can see is, for example, Merck, the German Merck company. They have a division that is looking at potential disruptions all over the world. So they scan what is happening in Germany, in Europe, and the US, and overseas, in terms of what changes are there. And they try to understand those changes, and they have a disruption report actually, which they give to the employees on a very regular basis. However, even those people might oversee something, because what you can try is to look at the potential disruption. However, then it's approaching from a different side. I mean, think about the linear TV market, like the big players doing a linear TV, like ProSieben Sat.1 in Germany, or the big corporations in England, the US. Where do they get disrupted from? Actually, an Amazon Prime. So a company that was selling books, first of all, and is now an internet player. They disrupt the business model of the linear TV companies with their models. And this shows you sometimes can't see everything, so you need to have your employees think outside the usual scope of work. And not everyone likes it, but there are always people who like it, and you can all try to give it. You can also try to give it a try. That's what I want to say. It sounds a little odd. Try to give it a try, like a 3M or Google with the like 10-15% rule. So 10-15%, you can do whatever you want, and then you can see some people like that, some people don't, and if you rely on those that like that, it's enough to see potential disruptions. However, then it's always your task to look at those disruptions, try to understand them, and try to find the very specific reaction to that. Now, looking at the chat room, hi all, hi everybody, this is nice. Is there anybody to go further and complete master's degree of RWTH? How much do I have to spend for it? Is there any scholarship for it? Actually, yes, there is. We start this MicroMaster, and this MicroMaster also is it could be a starting point in order to go into into our Master of Management and Engineering in Technology Innovation Management. So if you do the MicroMaster, and this is the first course of the MicroMaster, then you can apply for the MME time, and then you get a discount for this MME, and you can go and complete a master's degree at our university. So maybe I see you all in our other courses. Another question is, the speed of disruptions going to increase even further, or do you think that markets will become more stable? Well, I'd like to rely on what Ray Kurtzman says, or said a couple of years ago, actually. He said that technology, and Ray Kurtzman was always right, in many cases right in his projections, and he said the tech change of the last 100 years will be the same change as in the next 20 years. So looking at that, looking at how much technology will change in the next 20 years, and compared to the last 100 years, it's factor 5. So the world is not getting more stable. The world is being disrupted more and more, and every one of us will actually see what happens. Not many of us, I think nobody here in Aachen, or not many people in Aachen, but nobody in here has seen the world 100 years ago, but many will see in 20 years. And taking that into account, I think it's not going to become more stable. It's the opposite. Marco is asking, how do you deal with disruption, especially in sectors like media industry, full of fake news? I don't know if it's only a disruption question what you're asking, because fake news is a different kind of problem. However, the media industry is an interesting industry to look at, because we do have some tendencies in the media industry that might be dangerous for the established players. And I was just talking about the TV stations. Now look at the movie producers, for example. Movie producers were producing movies and series like an HBO over time, all over the last 5, 10, 20 years. Now Amazon is coming up, and not only Amazon, Netflix, they have the original series. And they use their capabilities, actually their strengths of knowing what the customer wants to build their new series, disrupting these companies. So we do talk about the media industry in our course and actually what happens there, because I do believe that a big change is happening over there too. So these were a couple questions actually, and I'm very much looking forward to more questions. We are happy to answer all those also in the chat rooms. And actually, first of all, I'd like to, I'm very happy to see you in our course. I'm very much looking forward to working with you, and also to giving you a certificate at the very end if you really finish this course, and if you finish the MicroMasters. Maybe potentially we do see each other lively in Aachen. So thanks for joining our live course.